This is the Anbernic RG477V. It's an Android-based retro gaming handheld device, and if you love nostalgia, you'll probably love this, like I do. Now, I think this goes without saying, but I wasn't sent this device by Anbernic or anything like that for review. These are just my honest opinions and impressions on using it for the last week. I know we don't really talk about video games or anything like that on this channel, but I love technology and I love video games. I've loved it ever since I was a child. So every once in a while I get something cool and I kind of want to share it with you guys. So let's talk about some of the things that I've really enjoyed while using this handheld. With the chipset and GPU that's in this guy, you can pretty much handle anything all the way up to the Wii U. I've tested games from PlayStation 2, the Wii U obviously, GameCube, all the Game Boys, DS, 3DS, you name it. It's pretty much chewed through it all. Like, I haven't really experienced any major issues with anything yet, but I also haven't gone above Wii U. And this has allowed me to experience retro games that, maybe I grew up in my childhood playing, or just experience games that I never played, but maybe wanted to play when I was a kid, but now I can. And the thing is, I think these games hold up after all these years. The gameplay is usually fun, and you kind of realize that just because these games are older doesn't mean that they're not good or they're lesser. It's actually quite fun. So in that way, it's great. If you're looking to do very high-end things with this device, it may not be what you're looking for, but if you're looking to play things like GameCube and Wii and PlayStation 2, I haven't noticed any major hiccups so far. And
now I do want to note that when you get this handheld, it's not going to come with any of these games or emulators installed. So it is going to be something that you're going to have to set up all on your own, but there are plenty of resources online that can show you exactly how to set up emulators and front ends and everything like that. It's not very difficult. It does take some time, but as a new user, I didn't really have too much trouble setting all these things up.
I have the base model, and so I only have 128 gigs of internal storage, but you do have the ability to add an SD card in there, and so I've got two 128 gig SD cards that I've got loaded with a bunch of stuff. It's not like a unique feature for a device like this, but it's nice to see here. Get things like USB-C, down-firing speakers, Hall effect joysticks, which are just, it's standard at this point, but just great joysticks, although I wish the actual pad on top of the joysticks is a little bit larger, but it does look like you can change those out, and so we'll see what I could do about that. I love the 4:3 aspect ratio screen on a vertical handheld. It's like a perfect combination. It's a great aspect ratio for playing retro games, and the 120 hertz refresh rate makes it super easy and seamless to play video games with very minimal lag and just a smooth experience overall. And just a classic vertical handheld design that resembles something like a Game Boy, but isn't, such a small screen. Like, it's obviously like an updated version of what that would be, but it is a vertical, but it isn't quite small. If you can see it compared to something like my hands, I have quite large hands. It's small, but it's not, it's not pocketable, I don't think. Not like something like this would be, like a Game Boy Advance. And so if that's something you're expecting, it's definitely not that small. And even if it were, these joysticks kind of popping up, I think would hinder you on being able to just pocket this guy. If you want something smaller that can play a little bit lower end games, there's a ton of devices like that out there that I know exist. But this is something that I kind of keep around with me at home. If you want something that's going to be, with you on the bus or like in a train ride, you could. I just don't think it's very pocketable. So you'll need like a bag or a carrying case or something of the sort to kind of keep it with you. You can also add, external accessories like grips. If you're looking to play for long periods of time, you can add things like that. So something else that I love about the 477V is that you can output HDMI video signal via the USB-C on the console. And that allows you to play all of the games that you would normally play on your handheld, but on your TV. And you can do things like connect your PS5 controller to the 477V, and then you can use that as a device. And so in that way, you can play video games on your TV or your monitor like you would any other console, except you also can disconnect it and play it with you anywhere. Kind of like a Switch, except you're playing a bunch of different consoles. It's not just, you know, the Switch. Something that I've really liked is that you can actually upscale a lot of the games that you play on this, and therefore just making things look sharper and smoother than the original game looked like on original hardware. And so that's been really fun to kind of tinker around with and mess around with. You can also add shaders to things like Game Boy Advance games or 8-bit games to try and smoothen things out. I don't love doing it, but if that's your forte, that's something that you're able to do. So you can make older games look even better, you know, than they were originally intended. And that's part of the customizability that you get with something like this that reminds me of having a PC. You're not stuck to any one given formula. You know, you can kind of customize things to the way that you like it. So whether that's upscaling, whether that's you want to have widescreen hacks, if you want to have texture packs, these are all things that you can add after the fact. Now this next point isn't specific only to the RG477, but more to just Android retro gaming handhelds as a whole. I recently installed the Emulation Station Desktop Edition front end for this device. It allows you to browse your library of games, and you get things like a box cover art. You get to preview like a gameplay of what the game's gonna look like before you actually enter in on it. So it gives you just a better idea of what it is that you're about to play. And so it just makes it very seamless to browse different systems as well as browse your game libraries and make a better choice, you know, in the time of what you want to play. And it's kind of taking something that's old and retro, but making it up to date, and bringing a new UI and interface on this device just makes it very aesthetically pleasing, number one, but just easy to navigate and a lot of fun to use. Makes it like a true console experience. I mean, I've watched countless videos from Retro Game Core and Joey's Retro Handhelds, just learning how to set up certain things, and it's been honestly a lot of fun. The experience kind of reminds me of when I built my first PC. It's very customizable. You can do almost anything with it. It's really up to you how you want to set things up, and that level of tinkering is not something that most people, I think, want to commit to when, you know, playing a video game or just dealing with technology in general, but it's something that I really enjoy. So if you're not a fan of like tinkering with things and messing with settings, Android-based like retro gaming handhelds may not be your cup of tea. If you're looking to re-experience some of those older games, it may be better to just get the console and either mod it or just play the original games like the discs and cartridges and things like that. But if you're okay with tinkering, then this may be for you. I don't really have too much to say negatively about it, although I'd say it's not perfect. There are definitely some things that I would like to see changed on the next iteration. Now, the stock OS that comes pre-installed on this guy isn't the greatest, and so I kind of knew that going into it, and so I ended up watching a couple videos from Joey's Retro Handhelds and Retro Game Core that show you how to set up things like GammaOS next, which GammaOS is just a better operating system overall and allows you to do things like access your internal storage, adds things like gamma shaders, which gives you things like CRTV effects that you can do straight on the console, just default, it's not in a specific game. So you can make everything look like it's being played on a CRT TV with like a curved edge. It's super cool. You can also add another GammaOS shader on there that's called LCD3X, which basically makes the screen look and resemble something similar to like a Game Boy Advance, where you kind of see all of the dots. I don't know how to describe it, it's kind of hard to describe, but it's not quite like a CRT TV effect, but it does make the screen look, funny enough, a little older. But if you're looking to add to the experience of your retro games and you want to experience them as they were, sort of, then you can add things like that. And that comes with GammaOS. So just nice quality of life features that you don't get straight out of the box on the stock operating system. And it was a bit of a process to get that installed, but it wasn't honestly too hard. This is my first forte in retro handhelds, and if I can do it, you could probably do it too, just as long as you have a PC. There's a ton of features that get added with GammaOS, and just really great quality of life features that don't come on the original operating system. And so I'd highly recommend, if you're looking into getting an Anbernic device like this, to consider going through the process and just installing GammaOS just right out of the box. The fan noise can be quite concerning sometimes, but I know it's just cooling off the CPU and the GPU and the internals and everything, so it's just doing what it needs to do. But sometimes it does get quite loud, and so what I find myself doing is if I'm gonna be playing something like PS2 or GameCube or even things like the Wii U, I will just set the fan noise to cool instead of auto, because what I notice is that when it's in auto, the fan noise just constantly ramps up and down and up and down. And to me, that sounds like concerning. It may not actually be concerning, but when you're hearing it like go up and down, it sounds like there's something wrong. So I just like to keep it constant, and I would just set it to cool, and usually that's fine. Like it doesn't go above cool and go to max fan noise or anything like that. It just keeps it constant, just keeping everything cool while you hear a little bit of fan noise instead of it ramping up and down and up and down, you know, kind of thing. Something I'd like to see in the next iteration of this handheld is somehow inputting analog triggers. At least having a set of 2 analog triggers is always welcome, especially when you're playing things that require, you know, the pressure difference, and it can detect pressure differences, and how that small like little adjustment can either improve your performance in the game or just change the gameplay. And so it'd be nice to have analog triggers on the next iteration instead of just buttons like we have on this. Now, while I love this device, it doesn't replace OG hardware. So if you have, you know, OG consoles, I wouldn't get rid of those consoles just to use this, because number one, not every game plays perfectly on the 477V. Like sometimes there are bugs, sometimes there are glitches, sometimes it'll just crash for no reason. I haven't experienced that a ton. It does happen every once in a while, but once it happens, I haven't experienced it happening multiple times. So it's just kind of one-off experiences. But if that bothers your, you know, gaming and you don't want to be interrupted in that way, I wouldn't get rid of your OG hardware, because it doesn't do everything perfectly. It's like a jack of all trades that could do mostly everything, but I'm sure there's a couple exceptions, a couple games in there that's just not going to run very well. And so on top of that, you're not playing with the OG hardware. So doing things like playing the OG Wii, where there's a motion controller that was originally used, and using a standard controller can be a bit fiddly, and you have to be very customizable with certain games and how you're going to play it. So it's not like a one-stop solution. It's definitely a lot of tinkering and figuring out, you know, what renderer works the best, what resolution can you run the game at. So it's not a plug and play, but it is pretty cool that this can do almost everything that I'd want it to do. And ergonomics is also not on the side of the 477V, especially when you compare it to something like, you know, the OG GameCube controller. Like this is super comfortable. It's meant to be played for long sessions, and yeah, it's hard to beat that. But the argument could be made that you could get a Bluetooth controller that can connect to the 477V that'll give you the same ergonomics. So it's really customizable and it's up to you, but I wouldn't get rid of OG hardware for it. Yeah, we'll see how it holds up over the next couple months, and if my opinion changes, then maybe I'll make another video at that time. So if you guys have any questions about the 477V, just drop them in the comment section below, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm not highly technical, but if I don't know the answer to something, I can probably point you in the right direction to where you might find the answer. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you're interested in watching me stream or play any of these games, I will leave all my information in the description below, if that's something you're interested in. So until then, talk to you next time. Bye.